Coming up on Global Business, China's tourism industry braces for high demand ahead of the Labor Day holidays as bookings for road, rail and air trips surge. China experiencing a significant increase in gold demand with a corresponding rise in prices. We look into the reasons for the price surge. China's film market recovers steadily with the ongoing Beijing International Film Festival adding to the excitement. From CGTN headquarters in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Lily Lu. China's Ministry of Transport is bracing for a record-breaking Labor Day holiday travel demand as road trips are set to match pre-pandemic levels. The ministry said that the country rail network will maximize capacity to cater to the high tourist volume. That is over 6.4 million train tickets sold already. And starting tomorrow, there will be 1,500 more trains dispatched daily across the nation, taking a total to over 10,000 on a single day. And for those who travel by air, Chengdu, Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai and Shenzhen will be the hotspots. The ministry has also asked the local authorities to bridge the last mile for those who make visits between cities and the countryside. In the meantime, the State Council's Joint Prevention and Control Mechanism has announced measures to ensure travelers to have a safe trip during the upcoming Labor Day holiday. With the country expecting the tourism boom during the holiday period, hospitals have made full preparations to handle any possible surges in fever clinics. A spokesperson for the State Council suggested that vaccinations before traveling to address concerns about the flu season and sporadic COVID-19 outbreaks. Consumer spending is one of the main drivers of China's economy, so there was much interest both at home and abroad as to whether it would return to pre-pandemic levels once COVID-19 controls were eased. Our reporter Guo Tianqi visited a village in southwest China's Sichuan province that is popular for its cherries and filed a story.
Cherries in Sichuan are a delicacy, especially in spring. The 260 hectares of cherries in the Diaoqing community of Meishan make the small village a tourist hotspot this time of the year.
2 months after the cherry blossoms finished blooming, now the trees are filled with ruby-colored cherries. Here the visitors can participate in the joy of harvest and try organic cherries right from the field. Very sweet.
Villagers here have been growing cherries for about 70 years, and many different varieties have been introduced in recent years through modern farming techniques.
A tree can produce about 50 kilograms of cherries. The better the quality, the higher the price. Cherries like this can reach $10 per kilo. About 800 families in our village are growing cherries. In total, we can earn $2 million a year.
You need to pay more if you want to pick up the cherries yourself, including the entrance fee to the orchard. But for many who wish to get closer to nature, it's a price worth paying.
Every spring, we come here together to pick cherries. It's a traditional family activity. The children and the elderly are enjoying it very much.
The cherry tastes very good this year, very sweet and soft. The price is okay. We plan to pick a few baskets.
This village is only a 90-minute drive from Chengdu. In the first spring after the pandemic, both rural tourism and the cherry sales are very encouraging.
There are a lot of tourists here today. The road at the entrance of our village is relatively narrow and there is some congestion.
Actually, many sectors of China's economy exceeded expectations in the first quarter, including tourism, consumer spending, and investment. Experts say that the macroeconomy is in full recovery mode now, while consumer confidence is also warming up. Guo Tianqi, CGTN, Meishan, Sichuan Province.
The China Gold Association released fresh data related to gold consumption trends in the country on Wednesday. During the first quarter of this year, Chinese consumers purchased over 291 tons of gold, representing a 12% increase over the same period of last year. Consumption of gold bars and coins saw a significant increase that is up 20% on the year to nearly 84 tons. In the meantime, gold jewelry consumption rose by 12% to almost 190 tons. Experts believe that a general trend towards boosted consumer spending and promotional events were key drivers of this increased demand. And in parallel, gold mine output in China grew by 1.8% on the year in the first quarter of the year. That is largely driven by the rising consumer purchasing behavior. A 10% drop in the value of the US dollar since October has led countries to diversify their foreign exchange portfolios. And one of those most favored assets has turned out to be gold. Our reporter Zhang Shixuan finds out the reasons behind the rising demand for gold.
Gold prices appear to be in the midst of a bull run. After the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, which was followed by a series of banking crises in the United States, the price of gold rallied more than 10% and stood above $2,000 per ounce for the first time since March 2022. Though the price has retreated of late, it's still sitting at around $2,000 per ounce. Demand for gold illustrates a flight to safe haven assets and reflects falling confidence in the US dollar.
The market has been expecting the U.S. Federal Reserve will loosen its monetary policy, so in the short term investors expect the Fed to lower interest rates. But inflation looks like it's here to stay, so in the long term the effective interest rate will decline. So the market is looking for an asset that has better liquidity than the US dollar and US bonds.
A recent report from the World Gold Council shows that central banks around the world last year purchased a record high of more than 1,100 tons of gold combined. The council foresees a continuation of the trend this year.
For central banks, we have confidence that there will be continued increased demand. However, it might be hard to beat the record of last year. For the purpose of the safety and for the high liquidity and also for the long-term return, positive return for gold in the marketplace, especially in the past 30 to 50 years, has given the confidence to the central bankers. And so that we have seen that more countries has started to join the team to increase their gold reserve.
In January, the Monetary Authority of Singapore increased its gold holdings almost 30%, adding 44.6 tons of gold to its official reserves. Central banks in Russia, Turkey, and India have also stepped up gold purchases. Zhang Shixuan, ICS for CGTN, Shanghai.
And for more discussions on the growing demand for gold and the de-dollarization trend, CGTN talked to David Simon John Tate, the CEO of the World Gold Council, earlier. Tate said that gold has a huge role in improving the safety and liquidity of the country's foreign exchange reserves. Take a listen.
Central banks have been buying gold for persistently and increasingly since around about 2013. Most notably, it's the developing central banks who have been buying the gold, on largely playing catch-up against many of the larger Western central banks. And they're buying it for a number of reasons. Firstly, they're buying it for pure diversification amongst their own portfolio, which I think has been the major driver in the early stages. Most recently, they've been buying gold to hedge against inflation, which I think they're playing a little bit of catch-up. And lastly, of course, there is the geopolitical risk, which is no one's immune to. There's also been quite a bit of internal portfolio shift inside central banks, shifting from various currency holdings into gold for that reason as well. It's not always been brand new gold they've bought.
As you mentioned, the diversification is still in the early stage, but we have seen de-dollarization trend gaining momentum recently. And in your opinion, does it relate to the rising demand for gold? And what role do you think gold will play in the future in this process?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about de-dollarization, and a lot of it is almost invisible. I do think there has been some move by some central banks to move themselves out of not just dollars, but other currencies as well. And I think that's irrefutable. But at the same time, it's very difficult for me to put a number to it or record it in any particular way. However, at the same time, I think it's worth noting we're seeing almost more central bankers buying gold as a consequence of either not having enough in their portfolio or, as I mentioned earlier, wanting to diversify either against their perhaps one-sided portfolio or hedge against inflation, which doesn't seem to be going away.
And we have seen gold prices gain significant ground recently. In your opinion, will this trend continue, and how will inflation and central bank decisions influence the prices of the precious metal?
Well, I think obviously the effect of interest rates is obvious. And I think inflation, the effect of that is obvious as well. If my personal feeling is that inflation is a bit sticky, and I do feel that the central banks, call it the Fed, is going to be forced to tighten just that little bit more, and maybe more than people expected. That, I believe, will nudge the economies into a necessary but shallow short recession, because that has historically been the only way you stop inflation. If that is the case, then I continue to see a very, very healthy outlook for gold. That's just the inflation element. But then, of course, you've got an array of different things. You've got the geopolitical impacts as well, which I think are really burgeoning and we're seeing in front of our eyes. But to me, the most important thing is the amount of debt there is in the world. We've seen two banks collapse relatively quickly, not necessarily due to debt, but the nervousness in the markets is tangible. And I think that is going to be a significant gold driver in the not too distant future.
You're watching Global Business on CGTN. Still to come on the program, China's film market recovers steadily, with the ongoing Beijing International Film Festival adding to the excitement.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
Let's now move on to the Chinese film industry. The 13th Beijing International Film Festival is currently underway in the Chinese capital, adding to the excitement surrounding the country's domestic film industry. Since last December, the Chinese film market has been steadily recovering. And according to the China Movie Database, the first quarter of this year saw China's box office reaching nearly 16 billion yuan, representing an impressive 13.5% increase compared to the same period of last year. Domestic films accounted for around 88% of the total box office earnings, generating almost 14 billion yuan. And data from global consultancy firm PwC indicates that China's film market is set to fully rebound to pre-pandemic levels by 2025, with total box office earnings exceeding $11 billion in 2025. As the film industry in China continues to evolve, both the landscape of the domestic market and the demands of moviegoers have seen significant changes over the past 3 years. Our reporter Xu Yi explores these changing trends by visiting cinemas in Beijing and speaking with industry insiders.
With the pandemic policies easing and the highly anticipated films returning to the big screen, cinemas across the country are experiencing another boom. Here in Beijing, the cinemas in the city continue to thrive with more hot films recently. At the cinema in Chaoyang District, it appeared that there were more people present than ever before. One gentleman was seen waiting for his snacks and drink, eager to catch his upcoming film in just a few minutes.
就是那个《灌篮高手》，因为小时候就看这个漫画什么的，就主要它是有这么一个情怀吧。
觉得很好，对，因为好久没吃过爆米花了。
Yeah, I like the larger screen and kind of to sit in the seat and get the full experience of it. I think it's starting to get back to normal.
人明显多了，尤其是一些新的片子上映的时候，有的时候票都不太好买。
But some people are of the view that their movie-going habits have seen a significant change from the pre-pandemic period.
所以其实也是改变了我的一个观影习惯。有的时候觉得有一些电影可能不是很有必要，也就在家里看了。
比较有选择性的，然后或者说挑一条好的这个时段呀，好的这个影片。
Changing consumer habits have influenced the whole film industry, which has undergone significant changes in recent years, including the loss of producers, brain drain, and the emergence of new media formats. While these factors have posed significant challenges to the industry, they have also created new opportunities for growth and innovation. Chen Huan, who manages a cinema in the Chaoyang district, shared that the pandemic had prompted his team to adopt a new mindset and provide better services to moviegoers, further reflecting the ongoing adaptability and resilience of the industry.
Due to the pandemic, we faced significant reduction in profits and operational challenges. This experience prompted us to set higher standards for our operation, with a greater focus on providing quality service and listening to audience feedback. In line with this, we have also made changes to our film selection process, prioritizing films based on audience needs rather than only relying on critical evaluations.
According to experts, the film industry has gradually shifted its focus from the recovery of distribution channels to the quality of content. Many are of the view that the growing supply of outstanding films will be a key factor in accelerating the industry's recovery. Chen Jiahe expects the domestic film industry to regain its momentum over the next 2 years.
The film industry is always something that is very hard to predict. You don't know what the customers are like. It's a very interesting thing to understand that the total box office of such a large country might depend on just a few very good films. What the film industry can only do is, produce a film as they can predict.
The PwC data also indicates a promising future for global film market as a whole, with a full recovery expected in 2024. Xu Yi, CGTN, Beijing.
One of the main segments of the Beijing International Film Festival is the project pitches. The segment helps young and upcoming directors with investment opportunities. Wang Siwen has more.
Song Ziyue has been working in the film industry for more than 5 years. She studied film in university, and her dreams of being a director have never changed. But it's not an easy path, especially for young people.
Often, the market and the industry don't have a high level of trust in new directors. And young directors' professional skills only stay in theory. And using new directors will increase the risk of producers.
She said more opportunities are what young directors need the most.
It doesn't need to be a high investment production, but even a short film or drama is a good option for young directors to gain experience and show their talent, realize their value.
Talent and good content have been the focus of this year's Beijing International Film Festival.
More supporting measures have been put in place to help those wanting to break into the film industry, such as young directors and those with the potential to stand out.
The Project Pitches segment is helping to discover filmmakers with potential, providing a platform for investment, production, marketing, and so on.
The future of film must be these young professionals. I hope they can have more opportunities, whether from these film and television companies, directors, screenwriters, and so on, so that they can show their talent on stage. What new stories can be born from the perspective of these young people?
Judges say only good stories matter. Winning projects will be selected and eventually turned into films. Wang Sun, CGTN, Beijing.
You're watching Global Business on CGTN. Up next on the program, majority of U.S. companies in China bullish on long-term growth prospects in the country. That is according to a new American Chamber of Commerce in China survey, and we look into the reasons.
"360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
The American Chamber of Commerce in China has released its annual white paper on the country's business environment. More than half of the surveyed members say that they feel positive about the business outlook in China as the country eased its COVID-19 measures and placed increased focus on its economy. The report stated that consumer sector members are expecting the most growth. No one from the service sector forecast negative market growth, but nearly 30% of research and innovation companies expect their industry to shrink this year. 17% of tech and other R&D companies said that they plan to decrease investment, the highest across all sectors. AmCham said that this could be the result of restrictive measures placed by the U.S. on technology and business activities in China.
Technology is a really small but important piece of the investment puzzle. There's plenty of investment and trade that goes back and forth, which is in things like automobiles and just manufacturing, which would not be covered by this. Certainly, the folks that we've talked to from various U.S. government entities as they've been researching sensitive technology. They've said that they would be as specific as possible. So I don't think it's going to be a wide coverage, but again, it will be significant to a couple of categories. If you look at some of the data that we had in this past survey, when we talked about companies making more investment, the tech sector was one that was not as optimistic about making additional tech investment. And I think this is why, because there was the expectation there would be some restrictions.
A delegation from the Australian business community is in China, visiting industrial and commercial centers in Hong Kong, Tianjin, and Shenzhen. This is the first such visit since the outbreak of the COVID-19. CGTN's Xu Hua sat down with Greg Smith, chair of the China-Australia Chamber of Commerce, South China, to talk about its significance.
Thank you for making time for our interview. What's the significance of the Australian business delegation's visit to China?
Well, coming out of the pandemic, this is, I think, of great significance, that it is the start of a new optimistic phase. I think we've all been disappointed by the way that trade has been constricted during the last 3 years, and this is an opportunity for both countries to reconnect and continue to celebrate our long tradition of good trade together.
What do improved China-Australian ties mean to the United States?
I think the whole world is happy when there is good business. I think the whole world looks to see that the reawakening after the pandemic is good news for everybody. Nobody wants to see trade constrict. Everybody wants to see that we can get rich together. And I think that is one of the things that we'll see from this delegation, is that we're bringing great ideas from Australia to meet great ideas from China, and I think the relationship will only get stronger as a result of that.
Talking about the future, can we expect more dialogue between the two sides?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, there's such a long history and a rich history of great dialogue, good trade, friendship between the two countries. I'm sure that this is just the start of what's going to be a continuing strong relationship that's built on win-win and is built on the great similarities that we have between our people.
The 133rd edition of the Canton Fair is in full swing, with the second phase of the event bringing buyers and exhibitors from around the world to South China's Guangzhou City. CGTN's Omar Khan spoke with some foreign buyers and business people about doing trade with China.
Canton Fair, you've been coming for 20 years. You guys also have decades of experience combined. I'm going to start with you, Tiago. From an abstract sort of view, the Canton Fair, what does it mean to you? What kind of business opportunities and platform does this sort of trade expo provide?
First of all, we are, I believe, all aware that Canton Fair this year it's on site, so we had the last 3 years online. For us and for our business, it's very important because we are doing here mainly sourcing and procurement, So it's one place where we can find, first we visit our old suppliers, but also we can find the new ones. We work for 3 different markets, Poland, Portugal, and Colombia. So in a way, Canton Fair, different products, different price range. So Canton Fair is very suitable because you can find different ones and adapt them to the market we are.
Coming here for 2 decades, you're clearly committed to this event, which is not too far from here. Why do you keep coming back?
Oh, that's because we need it. We need it for all the items we have to buy and sell. If we don't visit the fair, we have to look at the PDF and the photos
Catalogs.
and everything.
Yeah.
After 3 years, I was so happy when it's open again.
So what you would say these sort of face-to-face interactions, being able to touch, to meet with some, why that's super important for you?
3 years we have just running the business and buy the old items, and we need to expand to new groups of customers.
Right.
We need to find new items, new suppliers.
Now,
We've been receiving that information from catalogs.
Yeah.
Email. It's not possible.
Now we can go there.
No, we can go, yeah.
But there still do exist challenges. Things are getting more expensive here because the economy is growing. It's maturing.
Yes.
Of course, some low-end manufacturing, we talked about this earlier, is from Vietnam, Bangladesh, other countries. Do you see this as a challenge? Is this hurting possible business, or is it competition is good in that way?
The thing is, even if the labor cost is getting higher here, you still can find good products in the competitive price.
Okay.
Okay. So still the price is there, right? And even you can find that type of products in other countries because the labor cost is getting higher. Then you can find products here with high technology and less worry, I would say. With manufacturers' products, they can be more faster than before.
Okay.
Because they have been expanded, these factories, so they have more machines to manufacture more faster.
Yep.
So I think there are some benefits and some not so benefits about the labor cost. But I think in the end, China is doing great. In the end, we are getting like 80% of the products here.
The time now to take a look at some other business headlines that we're tracking at the hour. German consumer confidence surged in May as concerns over the impact of high inflation eased. That is according to a survey by Pollster GfK on Wednesday. The survey showed that this was the 7th straight month increase in Germany. Sweden's central bank raised its guidance rate by half a point to 3.5% on Wednesday in an attempt to rein in double-digit inflation. The country's inflation stood at 10.6% in March, which was still far too high, the central bank said in a statement. Australia's consumer price index rose by 7% in the 12th month to March. That is down from a 7.8% in year to December, according to figures released by the Australian Bureau of Statistics on Wednesday. Prices for most goods and services rose, but by less than in the recent quarters. Treasurer Jim Chalmers said that Australia had passed the peak of the inflation crisis, but cost of living pressures could persist. And with that, I'm wrapping up this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. Thanks for being with us. I'm Lily Lu in Beijing. Bye for now.
This is CGTN.